rocking with WTG Radio.
What's up, y'all? I'm in the lab with my man ODEE ENTV. I'm doing another episode of True Stories, and I guess today, let's see. Alright, this is what we're gonna do. So look, I was in California and I was working with an artist named CJ Hilton and a producer named Brandon Broadnex. Both of those guys are from here, so y'all can look that music up and check them out. Shout out B Heat Productions. And we was at SIR Studios, and that's where like all the artists kind of rehearse before they go on tour. Like when you see these big performances with all this shit, they be rehearsing like months before that shit happens. But anyhow, we're in there and I see all these stars coming through and shit like that, and I see them preparing for the show, and I just learned a lot of shit. But anyhow, while we're at CJ's rehearsal, Raphael Sadiq stops by. You know what I'm saying? And like everybody knows Tony, you know what I'm saying? And all the other groups that he had or whatever. So anyhow, we're sitting in there and we're just going practicing and fucking around and shit like that, whatever. So anyhow, after we leave SIR, he invites us back to his studio. You know what I'm saying? I guess, you know, once you're cool at the rehearsal and you don't act a fool, you get to go back to the other stuff. So we get back to his studio, and I'm not gonna put it out there. I'm not gonna say him because we ain't gonna pimp, but niggas had bags with machines that was blowing up trash bags full of gas and shit, and niggas was just sitting there with a whole big ass motherfucking bag, like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, and this is fucking 2006 or some crazy shit a minute ago, and like, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't all the centers and pack and all this shit. You know what I mean? They was in there just getting fried, and that shit was crazy. Then I went to his booth. This dude had like a rack of guitars all up in his booth. Like, he had a vocal booth for his guitars. You know what I'm saying? If y'all ain't already noticed, you see right now, this episode of True Stories is for the producers and musicians. So, you know what I'm saying? But still, it's still a crazy story. So anyhow, this nigga had like a booth full of guitars, like, and a lot of times he likes to bring the couch, I guess, into the booth, and he'll set up his whole setup in the booth and not leave and just lay on the couch. Whatever he's gonna do, he's doing it right there and record. You know what I'm saying? But anyhow, that shit was crazy. And then the last part of the story was when I went into the control room, these niggas was using like Pro Tools 5 or some shit. Now, you know what I mean? Now keep in mind, he got 2 big studios with SSLs in them. He got a garage with a basketball court. I'm not gonna tell all the man shit, but he could definitely afford the regular Pro Tools, but he was using Pro Tools, the older one, and they had the old interfaces and everything, but it was, you know, the big system. And I don't know, man, I just learned some shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it don't matter what you working on, as long as you got multiple tracks, whatever, it's about what you put in that joint. And that was my true story, because you think just because somebody famous and shit, they go buy a bunch of expensive ass gear and use a bunch of stuff, you know what I'm saying? But to the higher end musicians out there, they don't give a damn what they reach for. They reach for whatever. Sometimes they be using old guitars. They don't care about none of that shit. But their level of ability and skills is so high that it don't even matter. Not saying that he didn't have, because he had some high end shit. It just was, he could have purchased a new Pro Tools, but he didn't. And it didn't matter though, because we all still fuck with his music and whatever. So that's my episode of True Story. Of course, I got a bunch of them, but I don't like putting people on blast. You know what I'm saying? What happens in the studio stays in the studio. You know what I mean? So that's what's up. Shout out to my man ODEE ENTV, and this is DMV Dr. Dre episode of True Stories.